Why you cannot afford to sleepwalk your way through 2025. A boom is coming, both spiritual and economic. To possess your possession, you need a game plan. In other words, manna will not fall from heaven. Lynn, do you have a game plan? When I say game plan, I mean one obtained by divine revelation, not just chosen by you or someone else based on personal opinion. I have mine, which I'll be sharing shortly. Inside the Sapphire Forum, opening next week, and on through Forum X, NFR, Golden Journey, etc. There are certain things I will insist on. I will expect you to adhere to them. In a few days, recess is over. It's time to shift into high gear. Are you with me? Please be sure to wind down, as we are doing here. Click the link below for more info.
Okay, here's Chapter 1, expanding on the provided premise. Chapter 1, the call for protection. The sun, a molten coin in the vast sky, beat down upon the parched land of Canaan. Dust devils danced across the horizon, mimicking the restless energy that hummed just beneath the surface of the seemingly tranquil landscape. In the heart of this untamed beauty, where rocky outcrops gave way to sparse grasslands, a lone figure moved with the easy grace of someone intimately familiar with the terrain. This was Eliab, shepherd of his father's flock, a young man whose sun-kissed skin and calloused hands spoke of a life lived under the open sky. Eliab was not unlike the other shepherds of the region, sturdy, dependable, a guardian of vulnerable creatures. But there was a quiet depth to him, an inner stillness that set him apart. It was a stillness born of solitary hours spent under the watchful gaze of the heavens, a stillness that resonated with the rhythm of the natural world. He was in his late teens, his frame lean and strong, his dark eyes reflecting the endless blue above. His hair, thick and untamed, was the color of sun-bleached wheat. Today, like most days, he led his flock of sheep through a shallow wadi, the dry stream bed a temporary oasis of scrubby bushes and coarse grass. The sheep, a motley collection of woolly white and dusty brown, bleated contentedly as they grazed, their movements slow and deliberate in the relentless heat. Eliab walked behind, his shepherd's staff a familiar weight in his hand, his eyes constantly scanning the landscape. He knew the dangers that lurked, jackals that circled at dusk, the occasional wild dog that strayed too close, and the ever-present threat of the unforgiving elements. As the midday sun reached its zenith, casting long, sharp shadows, Eliab led his flock to a small, rocky overhang. It offered a sliver of shade, a brief respite from the oppressive heat. The sheep settled down, their panting breaths the only sound besides the faint chirping of unseen insects. Eliab sat on a smooth, sun-warmed stone, taking a leather pouch from the folds of his tunic. Inside were bread, dried figs, and a small skin of water, the shepherd's meager fare. As he ate, his thoughts drifted, as they often did, to the words his mother had taught him long ago. She had passed when he was still a boy, but her memory was a warm balm in his heart, especially on days like these when the vastness of the wilderness could feel overwhelming. He closed his eyes and began to recite, his voice low but resonant against the backdrop of the quiet landscape. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. Psalm 91, a song of faith and protection, resonated within him. It was more than just words, it was a feeling, a deep-seated conviction that he was under the watchful care of something greater than himself. It was a comfort against the fears and anxieties that sometimes crept in, the whispers of the wild that reminded him of his own vulnerability. He had learned to trust in the quiet power of these words, to find solace in their promises. Yet, as he finished reciting the psalm, a prickle of unease settled on the back of his neck. He opened his eyes, his gaze sweeping across the familiar landscape. There was nothing out of the ordinary, no immediate threat that he could discern. Still, the unease lingered, an unspoken warning. He decided to move his flock closer to the rocky outcrop, seeking the additional protection that the uneven terrain offered. He had barely settled them when he heard it, a low, rumbling growl that vibrated through the air. It wasn't a jackal, nor the whine of a stray dog. This sound was deeper, more primal, carrying a weight of terrifying power. He stood up, his heart pounding against his ribs. His eyes scanned the horizon, his shepherd's staff held firmly in his hand. The sheep, sensing the change in his demeanor, huddled closer together, their bleating sounds filled with a new, more urgent note of fear. Then he saw it. Movement in the distance, just beyond the crest of a small hill. A dark shape, far larger than any wild animal he had ever encountered, began to materialize. It was a creature of immense size, its form shifting and indistinct in the shimmering heat haze, but its menace was undeniable. It moved with a strange, unsettling grace, its approach silent and swift. His grip tightened on the staff, his knuckles white. He knew instinctively that this was no ordinary beast. He didn't know what it was, but he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that it was a danger beyond anything he had ever faced. The unease he had felt moments earlier solidified into a cold dread. The words of Psalm 91 echoed in his mind, but now they were not just a comfort, they were a desperate plea. He knew, as he watched the dark form growing ever larger, that the time for quiet reflection was over. He was about to be tested, and his faith, his only shield, would be put to the ultimate trial. He was no longer just Eliab, the simple shepherd. He was about to become Eliab, the protector. The call had been made, and he knew, with unwavering clarity, that he had no choice but to answer.
A song is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in